We've all had bad phone calls in our lives, whether it be a stranger dialing the wrong number, an awkward conversation, or even a prank phone call. It happens frequently. However, folks, these days, we don't really answer our phones. We let everything go to voicemail. I mean, at least I do. However, this list is about the people that pick up, the ones that ignore the blocked number and answer anyway. This is the top 5 scariest phone calls you need to listen to. Before we begin though, be sure to stick around until the end of the video where I'll be responding to some of your comments. Let's jump in. In at 5, the police officer. This creepy phone call comes to us from Reddit user Casey135R, who said, I quote, "I worked as a police officer in a small town in rural Nebraska back in the 90s. I was patrolling through town in the winter. We had several abandoned houses in town, but one seemed to have the attraction of copper thieves, so we were told to keep an eye on it. I drove by it around 7 PM, since it sat on a corner lot. I had a clear view of all 4 sides of the house. About 2 hours later I drive by again and the back door is wide open. Looking at the snow on the ground around the house, there were no footprints. The user ends up calling dispatch, informing them that he's going to be investigating the house and to send a sheriff their way. I quote, I walk to the open door, pull out my flashlight and shine it inside. The house has obviously been gutted for the most part. The plaster walls have been torn down, debris piles everywhere. Since there were no footprints in the snow around the door other than mine, and with all the dust on the floor not showing any footprints, I chalk it up to the wind or maybe the door just opened on its own. I was about to secure the door when I heard a loud thump come from upstairs and what sounded like a child laughing. So I entered the house. I called dispatch again, telling them it sounded like there were kids in the home. I head up the stairs and everything gets quiet. As I get to the top of the stairs, I hear a thump in the bedroom to the left. I carefully peek around the corner and it's empty, with a small pile of plaster and wood debris in the middle. No kidding, sitting on top of the pile of debris was a page torn out of a child's book with a picture of a police officer on it. I never went back in there again. Horrible. If you guys want to check out the dispatch call, I can't help you. In at 4, the creepy phone call. Another story uploaded to Reddit, this time from user Just Like Bart. They said, so this happened a few months ago and while there's probably an explanation for it, I never figured it out, so it still creeps me out when I think about it. I can't drive right now, so if I get off work around a certain time, my mum can pick me up. I usually text her and she'll drive over to my work and take me home. My house is about 3-minute drive from both my work and my mum's work. I usually walk to work, but most days after long shifts I prefer to drive. Now on this particular day I got off work right around when my mum did, so I called her and when she answered I asked if she'd be able to drive me home. She agreed. 10 minutes go by and there's no sign of her. I called again, no answer. I called 10 times and the last time I call, she picks up the phone. This time when she picks up, it's straight static on the other end of the line. I begin hearing really creepy quiet groaning noises, almost like a man quietly making stereotypical ghost noises. At this point I'm weirded out and still listening to the phone. My eyes are transfixed on the parking lot floor in front of me. I'm staring for a while when, bam, a huge tree branch falls off the tree over me and lands directly in front of my feet on the concrete. The phone goes silent. The mother eventually arrived, but the user adds a note at the end. My mum said she never picked up the phone the last time I called. So creepy. In at 3, Teresa. Uploaded to Reddit by Radio Lady01, they said, I quote, I started receiving calls from a number I didn't recognize, usually 1 or 2 per week. This person, who I'll call John, kept leaving voicemails when he called and I figured out pretty quickly he was trying to call someone that I will call Teresa, but he must have gotten the number confused. These missed calls came at different times of the day, and the voicemails were always pretty mundane, like, hey Teresa, it's John, please call me back, or hey Teresa, we're all hanging out right now, you should come over. This guy sounded kind of redneck and always a bit drunk, if you know what I mean. I kept wondering if this John was getting pissed at Teresa for never answering or calling him back, but I didn't feel bothered enough to answer and tell him I wasn't Teresa because frankly it was pretty interesting and funny that he could never get the right number. This went on for about a month until I woke up one morning and saw another missed call and voicemail from John. That was from around 4:30 AM. In the voicemail he sounded absolutely awful and his speech was very muffled and slow, and he was mumbling in a way that sounded like he was in pain or having trouble talking. The only thing that I could make out was him saying, Teresa, it's John. I've been in a really bad accident. I need you to come help me now. And then the message ended. It really creeped me out because honestly I was worried about the guy and I imagined him having been in a car accident early in the morning and calling Teresa while being pinned under a car or something. And sadly, that's where the post ends. He never received calls from John again and has no idea whether he's even alive. Honestly, this one is just really sad. Answer your phones, people. Coming in at 2, the reflection. This creepy call comes to us from Reddit user Merid_. A police officer who describes one evening they got a phone call about 8 years ago from an elderly woman. She called to say that she was hearing footsteps in her home and she thought there was a ghost inside because she regularly heard the sound of someone walking around upstairs, but she lived alone. So the user went to check out the home to make sure everything was okay. She stayed on the line with the 911 operator, and about 3 minutes after the initial call she said she saw a man standing outside in her backyard, staring at her through her sliding glass door. Petrified, the woman froze, staring directly at the man. For the next few minutes, she said they both just stood there, staring at each other before the man eventually disappeared out of sight. When the user arrived, there was no trace of the man, not even footsteps outside. However, before they left, they noticed in the living room, where the sliding doors were, a trail of mud and footprints inside the home. The user asked the woman if she had been outside at all that day. She said no, and that she lived alone. The woman had obviously seen the man's reflection and mistakenly thought he was in front of her, on the other side of the glass, in the backyard. In reality, he had been standing just a few feet behind her in the same room, which she had been talking to 911. That story is truly chilling. And finally, coming in at number 1, 3 AM. This one comes to us from Reddit user CDC_, who said, I quote, "When I was about 11 I got up around 3 AM to go to the bathroom. I walked in, peed, washed up, started walking back to my room, and as I walked through the living room I heard the telephone ring. This was the mid-90s, so it was a landline. Confused and slightly startled, I walked over to the phone, picked it up, and heard someone screaming. It was distorted, almost sounded like radio static that was trying to talk to me. I kept saying what and huh. Finally, after trying to make out what it said, the static got really loud, and through it I heard very clearly, very loudly, 'Get out now.' I hung up the phone really quickly and ran to my mum's room and told her what had happened." Holy crap, that is absolutely terrifying. Could have been a prank or a vengeful spirit forcing you out of the home. So frightening. I hope you don't live there anymore. Well, there we have it. Do you guys agree with our list? Were there any scary calls that we missed? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below, and perhaps we can do a part 2. Before I go though, I just want to respond to a few comments from one of our last videos. Top 5 dumbest teenagers in horror movies. Gregory Howe said, "Trivia. In real life, actress Rose McGowan did fit through." Well then, I was wrong. He was talking about the scene in Scream where Rose is trying to squeeze through the doggy door. I may have to rewatch this part now. Thank you. Caprilis Artois said, "Please do a top 5 scary shark movies. Would love to hear Lucy say, 'Let's jump in.'" Lol, I see what you did there. Ox the Undead 666 said, "I love this channel more than any other on YouTube. I will follow you to the end." Aww, thank you so much. You win. And on that note, if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another scary vid. And until next time, see you later.